Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Japan-India session ICT, titled ICT Skills in Africa, co-organized by India-Japan government. My name is Kenji Kaneko. I'm a director for International Cooperation Division, and I belong to Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communication. So before we start, I have a request. We will collect the questionnaires, which is distributed to you after the end of this session. So thank you very much for your cooperation. And now it's time. So we'd like to start the session. First of all, Mr. Watanabe, Vice Minister of Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communication of Japan, give you opening remarks. Mr. Watanabe, please come to on stage.
Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am Katsuya Watanabe, MIC of Japan. And thank you very much for coming to this session titled ICT Skills in Africa today. We are very pleased to be able to hold this session in cooperation with the Ministry of Communications of India at the Transform Africa Summit 2019, one of the largest ICT events in Africa. Currently, many initiatives are going on in African countries to solve various social issues or lead economic growth by utilizing ICT. On the other hand, while emerging technologies such as AI or IoT are developing, capacity building in the ICT field is critical for African countries to accomplish further growth, and therefore, in addition to the individual support provided by the relevant countries, more global cooperation is required. Based on such circumstances, the Ministry of International Affairs and Communication Japan and the Ministry of Communications of India adopted a joint project which provides capacity building programs in the ICT field for government officials in African countries under the cooperation framework of both ministries. In order to bring the project more specific, both ministries agreed to set up the session to hear the issues or needs directly from participants of African countries on the occasion of Transform Africa Summit 2019. Although this program aims to acquire knowledge in the field of ICT, its ultimate goal is to use ICT and IoT to solve social issues in each country in Africa. Today, the time is limited, but I hope that the panelists and the attendees will have an active and constructive discussion. I also greatly hope that today's session will contribute to lead to the solution of social and economic issues in African countries through the use of ICT. Thank you very much for listening to attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Watanabe. And we move to the next session. MIC of Japan and the Ministry of Communication of India will provide an overview of each African activities of each African countries. For each African countries. However, today the Ministry of Communication of India cannot participate So due to some circumstances. So today, just I'd like to explain about the efforts of both countries. Today, I'll give you two items. First, the overview of the overview of like trilateral engagement under India-Japan joint working in capacity building. And the other thing is capacity building for Africa in the field of ICT, which is conducted by Department of Telecom, Ministry of Communication of India. Firstly, I'd like to introduce to the overview of cooperation in India and Japan of capacity building. This proposed was adopted during the Japan-India Joint Working Group meet in 2017. The outline of adopted trilateral engagement under JWG, we call Joint Working Group, we call JWG in capacity building. Infrastructure support is borne by India, and technology and technical experts is provided by Japan. And this is a picture of framework of trilateral engagement under Japan-India Joint Working Group in capacity building. And Japan provide, as I told you, Japan provide technology know-how and expert manpower, and India provide like facilities and technology labs and technology infrastructure. This is a presentation which is made by Department of Telecom of India. The title is Capacity Building for Africa in the ICT Field. And I'd like to explain just overview. Proposed is aiming at leveraging the strengths of partners to build capacities in the field of ICT by setting up the knowledge transfer mechanisms to achieve sustainable SDGs in Africa. And we plan to leverage India's ICT infrastructure and understanding of the African market, and Japan's technological know-how and funding capabilities. Engagement need for capacity building in Africa. So the engagement is expected to lead to win-win scenarios in realizing Africa's growth opportunities. So with respect to background, the origin of proposed this project took roots during the fourth Japan-India in 2017. During the meeting, several projects were adopted for joint collaboration, which included capacity building project and the establishment of Center for Excellence for Joint Training in High-Tech Areas. So it was felt that India, Japan, and Africa can collaborate to leverage strengths of partner countries, as well as facilitate meeting sustainable development goals using ICT capabilities. Next, broad outline of proposed engagement. I've already mentioned you before, so I skipped. And this is a rationale. India has hosted a special session on India-Japan cooperation for the development of Africa at the annual meeting of the AFDB in May 2017. And during the meeting, Prime Minister of India mentioned that India, in cooperation with Japan and Africa stakeholders, is committed to pursue development cooperation that is responsible to the needs of African countries. Earlier, the joint statement issued during the 2016 India-Japan meeting underscores the importance of coordinating bilaterally and with other countries for developing better regional economic linkage, connectivity, and facilitating industrial networks, employing collective capabilities. So India and Japanese leaders have marked Africa as a priority. So this is a conceptual framework. And however, due to the limitation on time, I just stopped to give a presentation now. So I'd like to move to panel discussion. So we'd like to start the panel discussion. Firstly, moderator is Mr. Alex Netaro, CEO of the Rwanda ICT Chamber. So please come on the stage and proceed panel discussion. Thank you.
Hi, good morning. Thank you very much, Mr. Kaneko, for that introduction and an overview on the ICT skills in Africa session organized by India and Japan governments. And right now, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to welcome our distinguished panelists. And I'll start by inviting the Vice President of Japan International Cooperation Agency, Mr. Takao Toda, or Dr. Yes, here next to me. And it will be followed by Mr. Naito, the Director of ICT Systems Engineering from JETEC. And Ms. Violet Wamutara, the Executive Director of Rwanda Digital Opportunity Trust, and Mr. Gordon Kalema, the Director General from the Ministry of ICT and Innovation of Rwanda. And from the industry, one of the players, Mr. Mike Ndimurukundo, the Community Manager of Andela in Rwanda. Good morning once again. So let me start by just inviting each of us, maybe 30 seconds to 1 minute, just to do an introduction of yourself. I know Dr. Toda, he's a Vice President of JICA, but I guess people would want to know more why ICT skills, and maybe how you look into that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Alex. As I told some of you in the yesterday's session on health, ICT could be a potential great weapon for Africa to be the #1 continent within several decades. But there might be lots of difficulties. The reason why I'm here is based on the failure and the success of Japanese experiences. So here, in a very limited time, I'd like to share with you from that perspective, including our past and the future triangular multifaceted collaboration with India for Africa. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Alex. And my name is Naito from JTEC, and maybe you don't know about the JTEC, the organization. There was 40 years history already, established in 1978, and under the Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communications in Japan, MIC. And our main mission has two pillars. One of them is project finding and project execution, but the other, on the other hand, other side is training course execution, like a capacity building. And we had an, already 177 trainees in 89 countries. We conducted the training course in that country. It's outgoing, or also incoming. We accepted the trainees from the overseas and conducted the training course in Tokyo. So I think why I was invited here on the stage, maybe I had an experience for that kind of capacity building training course, and I would like to share that kind of experience with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, good morning. My name is Violette Mutara, and I'm the Regional Advisor and Country Director for Digital Opportunity Trust. We are a youth-led movement of daring young social innovators. What we do is we provide trainings, network, knowledge for the youth to be able to create and apply digital solutions to the everyday challenges that they face in their communities. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. I'm called Gordon. I work with the Ministry of ICT and Innovation, and I'm the Director General in charge of National Digital Transformation. For now, thank you.
Thanks, Alex. My name's Mike Ndimurukundo. I'm the Senior Community Manager with Andela. Andela is an engineering company, and what we believe in is that brilliance is evenly distributed, but opportunity is not. And what we do is we get the best software engineers across the African continent, with currently more than 1,500 in Lagos, Kampala, Nairobi, and Kigali. And I believe that's what I'm bringing on the panel to be able to discuss, look at what we've done to be able to add those skills on the African continent.
Thank you very much. I want to start off with Gordon, from the perspective of a government that is fast moving, that is fast developing quickly, and with ambitious goals in building a vibrant ICT sector. What do you usually see as a capacity gaps or skills gaps, and how is the government of Rwanda trying to plug these?
Thank you very much, Alex. As a government, you always have a mandate to empower the citizens across the whole spectrum of skill set. Just to say, from the top of the pyramid, you have to produce experts. The middle, you have to empower and train the national workforce, government employees, policies to help the private sector to be equipped with skills that are needed for productivity. At the lower pyramid, again, you'd be concerned to empower the citizens, which is a bit challenging. 11 million trained, are you going to give them international certifications? They have to consume digital services, and that's the context. Definitely across all the levels that I mentioned, there are challenges to do with the models which should work in your national context, to do with having designing policies which should help the investors, partners, people who want to collaborate, come and find it easy to work with you. So that's a bit what we do. And I would say one thing we've done in this field of skills development is put up a policy. This was approved by the cabinet, the digital talent policy, and it helps us to define what needs to be done today, but also gives us a picture of the unusual business we have to do. You know, it's so challenging that I think it has gone to a level where governments have to think like private sector if you're really supposed to deliver what the citizens need. So there are a few examples which I will share probably later on.
Yeah, that's what I was going to straight away ask you to do. How are you structuring partnerships to engage with the private sector? As I'm a private sector representative, so it is in my interest to understand but by way of also sharing with the rest of the community, the Transform Africa Summit or Smart Africa family, what kind of mechanisms are you structuring and how are you structuring them to involve and engage with the private sector? If you don't mind sharing a little bit of that before we move on to another person.
Yeah. Thank you, Alex. Precisely, I would say, I mean, as a government, your mandate will be always to put up a conducive environment which has policies, which has protocols to follow, and incentives. It starts with institutions where you need to have people mandated to do different things. For instance, you have RDB that helps us to attract the investors in the country. They'll put up incentives. There are many, I won't exhaust them here. You have the academia, where we need to work more closely. An example I can say is at the top of the pyramid, where we have to produce experts. I think in Rwanda, one thing we've been able to do is to attract the sort of Pan-African center of excellences in specific fields. In here, I could mention a center of excellence in data science that is in the country. We have the likes of AIMS, that most of you know, CMU, Carnegie Mellon University. We have a center of excellence on IoT, and many others. So those come to help and complement the efforts for the national development. But again, I think to your specific questions, the things which we do mainly is, first of all, as a government, to think like private sector. Now, when you think like private sector, then you're able to know what does an investor need. What makes an investor come to Rwanda?
So as you pause it there, I'll come back to Mike later on this, especially that you're talking about how does an investor come into Rwanda, and Andela is one of those companies that is in the employment, but also upskilling, slightly upskilling of the populace. So, but I want to come back to Dr. Toda, and immense work has been done by JICA in the training space, and yet you have started this new project, or you initiated, again, the government of Japan and India planned and put up this program. What inspired it, and what are the expectations that you have?
Okay, let me start with the so-called 0 point, but in a very swift way.
Yes.
Why with India, for example? Yes, I can say that with the keyword of contrast and mutual complementarities. Demographic contrast. Japan is aging. India continues to be young for the coming 5 decades at least. And contrast of development process. Japan is the first country in the world who became drastically, very quickly, in the sort of development countries a long time ago, half century ago, while India is now on the rise. So we have contemporary, totally different experiences, know-how, and failures. Thirdly, our contrast on the relationship to Africa. Japan, as Alex mentioned, is deeply committed to the African continent's development in terms of official development assistance and some other international corporations. Basically, government-to-government basis, public sector basis, while India has been a great actor and a partner for Africa, especially in the private sector. And the lastly, contrast of quality of creativity, which might be a debatable issue. But as some of you might know well, vis-a-vis Japanese characters, we are very much good at the team working, while India is positively and negatively individualistic. That results in the difference of our comparative strengths in the global arena. India has plenty of creative, avant-garde, to some extent naughty, in a positive way, human resources, while Japan is good at a kind of gradual improvement by team working. So taking in mind of these four compartmentalities, I think we can do better with Africa rather than sticking to the so-called traditional, conventional bilateral cooperation. We have asset, of course, with India. Japan-India cooperation is always very close. One of the most cutting-edge cooperation is for IITH, India Institute of Technology in Hyderabad. This is a worldly known institute in the world, and qualities of human resource there is, to my knowledge, on average, much better than any other institute of Japan. But we've been doing so many things in disaster control and smart city, IoT things. And we can make full use of this sort of bilateral experience to be applied to Africa. Let me remind my experience 20 years ago when I met Thabo Mbeki, the then South African president. And after Mandela, he created South Africa-Japan Bilateral Economic Committee. And I asked why? Why you need to do so? Many people are attracted by your countries, like Rwanda now. His answer was very simple. We need some sort of dynamism of perspectives and the balancer, which control the direction of Africa. That was what Thabo Mbeki said. And I think we need to suggest a similar thing. You have so many potential partners here in Kigali and in any other places in Africa now. Now Africa is under the spotlight, but you have to be very careful. If you stick to some specific trajectory, you would be failed. So you should be very cool to, keep your dynamism or mentality as a perspective. And we need to contribute to that one. But to be honest, I need to be very frank, and I appreciate your time to be here with us. It is also very much attractive for Japanese business sectors as well. Japanese business sectors, to some extent, is a kind of saturated situation. That means it's a counterintuitive thing, but Japanese business, which had been successful since decades ago, now in a saturated situation. So lots of dynamic, potentially innovative business sectors need some dynamic and generous partners, which is India, which is Africa, both of which allows Japan to remind ourselves of our potential dynamism. 3 or 4 decades ahead of us, what sort of demographic situation waiting for us? Yes. 1 out of 2 world population will be either African or South Asians. So, if you are real cool Japanese businessman, there would be no other way to deal with India and Africa. That is the right way for Japanese private sector. And I'm in the public sector of Japanese government, but I'm in a position to support this sort of, to be very frank. Okay, so
Even
I'll
you
stop
as
here.
even you as a public servant, you're saying that you see the opportunity in the next few.
Yeah, public servant means public servant to the private sector. So,
Oh,
okay,
okay,
thank you.
Wow. So, thank you very much. And Naito-san, if you may speak about what JETEC is doing, and maybe in your experience, what do you see are the skill sets that probably Japanese private sector needs to find in African countries or in Indian or partner with India, and based on what you've been doing before, what do you see?
Firstly, maybe I should listen seriously about those two panelists' needs or comments for the training course, but maybe they may say, okay, Naito-san, what kind of adaptable training course in Africa you should propose first? Maybe they may say. So to kick the discussions, maybe I should share my experience that the JTEC already deployed a training course just focused on ICT technology. We already did because that's our strike zone. That was infrastructure layers like sensor network, legacy network, wireless network, data centers, and also the cloud platform layers and application layers. Maybe I don't need to touch so much detail here, but at the beginning of these sessions, Mr. Watanabe-san mentioned in his speech that the learning the ICT technology is not the ultimate goal. Yes. Maybe you agree.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yes, because to utilize such kind of ICT technology and solve the social issues, it should be the ultimate goal. And that's more closer to the IoT area. So we are now already starting the IoT training course already. But before starting, we should nail down the problem areas, like which is the most problem areas. As Toda-san mentioned, that in Japan we have a very good knowledge and experience about the smart cities, he said, and disaster control, he said. But we have a lot of experience about the agriculture already. Say like, as Toda-san mentioned, that Japan is aging and are now facing the decrease of the populations. So the suburb area rather than Tokyo facing the problems. But ICT technologies like AI, IoT, drone, agricultural robotics may help those people. So to solve the problem should be the ultimate goal. So we would, if you ask me to propose some training course in African countries, I want to aim that kind of training course.
So let me take it to Mike, who is from industry here. Your experience, we know that Andela is working across the continent in several countries, Nigeria, Kenya, Uganda, and now in Rwanda. And you're employing young people, you're employing these software developers. To Naito's question, what kind of skill sets are you always looking for? What does it take for someone to be able to be onboarded into your programs? And maybe if you project, besides just your company, as an industry player, where are the gaps?
I think I agree with what you just said and what you said. Software development is a way to attain what you're looking for, but what we're really looking for is problem solvers. So we want people that can be able to solve problems, that can think creatively and be able to come up with solutions. And just like you said, what we are aiming for is, you know, a lot of times it's not a level playing field. A lot of Africans, a lot of young people don't have the opportunities, are not starting on the same ground as people in the West. So what we are doing is saying, okay, if you can be able to level up your skills, the infrastructure is in place, there is internet, there are massive resources online that are freely accessible, then you can come, we can give you a job, and you can learn on the job, and you can grow. So how we are really structuring our learning, our mentorship for our staff is making sure that everything that they're doing is project-based. So there are technical skills, yes, but we're also investing a lot in making sure that they are professional skills. So from day one, someone is able to, you're simulating an environment that they will if they're working with a client, if they're working on a big project, because that's something that they can go back and use. If they, you know, they go back, our engineers go back in the community and they are contributing to open source projects, they are starting their own businesses. The reason why they're able to do that is because they have that balanced skill set. They don't just have the technical skills, but they can also communicate really well. Nothing is more frustrating than a brilliant software engineer who cannot communicate what they're trying to build or work on. Yeah. And maybe to touch on what you mentioned earlier about why Andela, you know, why Rwanda is attractive to investment. A lot of times we focus on the ICT aspect, but really for Andela, it's also everything else. It's the fact that there's an open policy, you know, there's visa on arrival for any African. The Andela office in Kigali is the first one that is a Pan-African hub. We currently have, we've employed people from Ghana, Benin, Guinea, and DRC, Kenya, Uganda, and the reason for that is because they can come here and they can get a work permit and they can be able to operate in Rwanda, and that adds diversity. Like there's cultural exchange with the Rwandese that are employed. So it's the small things, it's the fact that, you know, the Ministry of ICT has been doing a tremendous job laying the foundation, the infrastructure is in place, and all the other players and everything else that is working that makes it attractive.
Thank you. I want now to jump to Violet. Your organization is called Digital Opportunity Trust. You're working with young people, and the skills that we talk about here, actually you live with them day in, day out. As Toda-san earlier said, in the future, huge percentage of the world's population is going to be African. We already have more than 60% of the African continent is below 25 years old. So how are you working in the skills, but also in the employment space?
So thank you very much. One of the greatest gold mines that we have in Africa, it's young people. As you've heard, we have more than 60%. According to the numbers, we have more than 460 million young people entering into the workforce by the year 2040. According to the ITU, 71% of young people are internet users. In terms of Africa, we are told that 48% are internet users. So what does that mean? That tells us that youth are tech-savvy, that tells us that youth are quick in adopting these technologies, and technology is the second language for the young people. So it's automatic that youth have to be put at the center of digital transformation, and that's what we do at DOT, where we put them at the center as they go out to train the citizens and to apply these different technologies. Complementing my colleague from Mandela, when we're talking about skills, we have to merge human skills, we have to merge critical skills, and also the ICT skills. When we talk about skills, we have to go back and look at the humankind who is creating all this innovation. We have to ensure that we're able to instill the very human, when we talk about the whole notion of sensitivity, the whole notion of empathy, collaboration, and this will ensure that the technologies that are actually being created are going to be inclusive and very important, effective. Also, when you're talking about skills, it's very important to look at are the critical skills. Critical skills, very important. My colleague mentioned communication, critical thinking, adaptability, and problem solving. Very important also when we talk about the continent. We're supposed to bring everybody on board. Nobody should be left behind. And here we're talking at making sure that we look at the underserved people, we look at the women. According to GSMA, more than 433 million women are unconnected. When we talk about Africa, we're told that 86 million women are unconnected. So what do we have to do to be inclusive? And I think it's very important to look at how do we put the women at the centers as innovators, as leaders, to be able to create this solution that actually come in to bring in inclusive and effectiveness. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I want to jump back to Gordon on there's something that Mike touched slightly, the availability of internet infrastructure. The infrastructure today that is needed in order to level the playing field, especially as far as knowledge acquisition is concerned. I think His Excellency Paul Kagame yesterday also mentioned this. How critical, or what maybe examples you could give from what government of Rwanda has been doing, and if there's anything other Smart Africa members or family colleagues can take from what you're doing at the ministry.
Thank you, Alex, and I want to appreciate the inputs that we just received from the panelists here. So to your question, infrastructure, I wouldn't be proud as a government that we have over 96 coverage, population coverage with 4G, if the last mile is not reached. Today, we count 52% of internet penetration, which comes from 7% just in 2011. Yes, you can have the infrastructure laid. You could have programs to empower the citizen through the right education, the critical skills that we are discussing today. But I think what is important is we always pause and ask ourselves that what is the impact? If you have 4G getting to 5G, it's being exhibited here. If you have the likes of Mandela helping us on the top of the pyramid, if you are lucky to have collaborations like Japan, India coming to Rwanda with such useful conversations, when all this happens, I think the very question which we end with is really to say, how does this benefit the person right in the village? And if that question is not answered, then we've not done our job.
Maybe the real question is that does that person, can they afford it? And maybe, because
Exactly.
benefiting them, we know how it benefits them. How it benefits them, they read, they learn, they go to YouTube, they go to Coursera, they get free content, and they improve themselves. But can they afford to actually go to YouTube and learn? Can they afford to, I don't know if that's the question we should be asking ourselves. And maybe another one to, just pausing,
Please.
and this is the last question for all of you. If we, just a scenario, a parable, as in the Bible they used to say, if we found gold or oil in the remotest place in this, on the continent, won't we build a pipeline? Won't we build the roads that go there? Won't we invest in would we ask the landowner? So the gold mine that Violet touched in people's brains, in young people's minds, wherever they are across the continent, yeah, how do we ensure that they have the right infrastructure to bring it to market? I'll start off with Dr. Toda here. How do we make sure that it's not expensive? I don't know.
Can
maybe
I,
how partnerships
can I
can
be a
play.
little bit naughty about
Yes.
yeah, excellent question. So probably I will neglect potential petroleum, yes, and go to wind and solar and geothermal one,
Yes.
which is much, much more sustainable. That might be against the Japanese policy, but I don't want to recommend Rwandese people to search for petroleum, which is not sustainable. That's my answer. But let me be very serious about that. Your question is very important. We're talking about ICT in the midst of skyrocketing strengthening of artificial intelligence, the role of human beings. In my sense, the role of human being is not find a solution, but to find the right question to be solved. Solution will be found much, much easier than before with the help of AI and ICT technology. So we need to be focused on question setting when it comes to ICT human resource development. Giving one example, in case of Rwanda, President Kagame distributed more than 280,000 computers more than 10 years ago to the primary school, which excellent, but which had been sleeping in the library of the huge number of primary school. And one small Japanese company went in and they said two questions. We want to make a very attractive e-learning materials. Second question was very important. With a limitation of very, very poor ecosystem, very, very old computer, which was fabricated more than 15 years ago. And so by setting these two questions, now more than, yes, I don't know, maybe 3 million or how do you say, potential pupils are now.
It's about 2 million
Yeah, 2 million,
pupils
2 million.
and,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
3
yeah,
million
yeah.
with the students.
And their change is remarkable. That's because of ICT, but that's because of setting proper questions. In close collaboration with India, we are thinking about the 3 layers: infrastructure level, ecosystem level, and application level. And in the middle, there are some supervisors to have a comprehensive overviews. And in each level, we need to set proper questions. Yes, that is the ultimate and the most efficient purposes of human resource training. That's my view.
Thank
Okay.
you very
Yeah,
much.
yeah.
And your closing, Mr. Naito-san?
A lot of things, a lot of part are overlapped with.
Summarize
what
it
Professor
in
says.
90
But,
seconds.
Yeah, from the different angle, I totally agree with him that only the framework which we cooperated and constructed, because as he mentioned that the last mile was not delivered yet for the 4G or something, it should be necessary first. But I totally agree that the ecosystem or operation or fund is very important. I know a lot of projects that the 3 years later they run out of the monetize. So the project will be seized. I know. First thing first, for the training course, this is the topics about the training course. Yes. So the hardwares, they should learn first because it's necessary. But now, maybe next issue should be the software area, because there's always bright side and the dark side. Bright side is people can enjoy the internet or comfortable life. But on the other hand, the dark side is there is always a risk for the data protections. So the risk mitigation is also important, like data protections or cybersecurity, those kind of things. But that's maybe the next issues after the hardware coming.
Thank you very much. And how do we get those minds? How do we mine the brains?
Yeah, so I think very important going forward, it will be very important to invest in, support, and collaborate with all these initiatives, engagements that are working with young people who are creating inclusive economies. Thank you.
Thanks. I'll try to do my wrap up, but also drive my point home, which moderator interrupted.
As long as
The
it's
point-
in 60 seconds is acceptable.
I'll try my best. The point I wanted to put across is that I think for us as a government, this is not a journey we cannot walk through alone. We need involvement of private sector, investors, collaborations. But again, just provide a homework. Like we know it here in Africa, it's not one size fits all. If anyone ever thinks of an interest to work with African countries, the models are different. We've seen the investment models, the partnership models which have worked elsewhere, and those are standard. Standard models do not work in Africa, or even to be specific in Rwanda. I think the homework we need to do with people we're working with, the partners, international community, organizations that are local here, if you ever think of a project and you want to make it work in Rwanda, it should be designed to fit Rwanda with existing specifics of Rwanda. That's very important. I don't want to go into detail, but I'm happy to jump on a conversation somewhere else.
Thank you. Thank you for the offer. Mike.
The beauty of sitting at the extreme end is that by the time they get to you, all the great points have been made. Totally agree with what everyone else has said. So I think on our part, what we can do is making sure that we design the content, design the applications that are accessible for people. I really liked what Violet said about making sure that we're inclusive. Are we making sure that it's attractive to women? Are we making sure that we're including them in the ads where we are calling for software engineers? There are times when you see an ad and it's saying we want female engineers to apply, and the ad shows men on it. And then the other thing also is accessibility. You know, people who are handicapped. Are we designing so that handicapped people can be able to access it? And then lastly is the infrastructure. Is it mobile friendly? Is it something that can be consumed easily on, you know, just like you talked, Gordon talked about the last mile connectivity, but if I try to load an app and it takes 30 minutes to load, I'll never go back to that. But if I'm able to access it right away. So on our part, it's making sure that our engineers design solutions that are right for Africa. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. Before my panelists go back to their seats, I'd like to take this opportunity. We've heard a lot about Japan and India relationship, so I'd like to invite His Excellency Oscar Calcutta, the High Commissioner of India to Rwanda, to join the stage and give the closing remarks.
Very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Well, I'm here to speak on behalf of my High Commissioner, who unfortunately could not be here because of health reasons. Well, it's my privilege and honor to be here, especially in presence of such eminent panelists. I think we had a very good and a fruitful discussion today. At the outset, I would like to congratulate the organizers of Transform Africa Summit 2019, especially the government of Rwanda and other partner countries from Smart Africa. We appreciate the visionary leadership of Rwanda in taking these initiatives. I would also like to thank Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communications in Japan for organizing this joint session with India on capacity building in ICT skills. Our partnership is aimed at contributing to the broad-based development of Africa, one very important component of which is capacity building. India and Africa have similar demographic and ICT usage profile. Therefore, it is in our interest to work together to achieve our common goal of establishing a digital economy in our countries. India is fully committed to share its ICT experiences, expertise, and software skills with other countries in the developing world. There are many dimensions to India's engagement with Africa in the field of ICT, namely capacity building and training, strengthening of African institutions, technology transfers, setting up of technology parks, executing ICT-related projects under concessional Indian lines of credits, investment by Indian private companies, etc. A large number of scholarships have been offered and training programs have been conducted by India to do the capacity building of Africans in the domain of ICT. As part of development partnership of India with African countries, Indian lines of credits have been used to construct technology parks, including IT parks in many countries of Africa. For example, Technology Park in Cape Verde and Mozambique, Mahatma Gandhi IT and Biotechnology Park in Cote d'Ivoire, IT Park in Swaziland, etc. India is also helping African countries in bridging the digital divide. The Pan-Africa e-Network program was launched in 2009 with the aim of narrowing the digital divide in Africa and harnessing socio-economic benefits of ICT. Under this project, India has set up fiber optic network to provide satellite connectivity, telemedicine, and tele-education to African countries. One such telemedicine center was set up in King Faisal Hospital in Kigali, not very far from this Kigali Convention Center. Apart from government-level initiatives, a large number of Indian companies have invested in Africa in this sector. They are engaged in training and capacity building of African youths so as to harness the local talent. Back at home, India is making great efforts in moving towards a digital society, with important initiatives like Make in India, Digital India, and Smart India. Government of India is committed to make affordable communication services available to the masses to empower them to take benefit of ICTs, which are changing the way of life in every arena of human activity. The average cost of mobile internet in India is amongst the lowest in the world, at around just $0.26 for 1 gigabyte of mobile data, as against the global average of $8.57, as has been reported in a recent analysis. Under the flagship program of Digital India, many e-governance solutions have been made available for Indian citizens, and India would like to share these experiences and solutions with Africa. In a similar way, telecom infrastructure projects may be executed for rural broadband using optical and wireless technologies in Africa. Joint projects can be executed by India and African countries in the field of e-governance, e-education, and e-medicine in Africa. The cooperation between India and Africa can be extended in delivery of capacity building programs in advanced telecommunication technologies in order to meet the objectives of knowledge building in high-tech areas. This session has been specifically organized to explore the possibilities of conducting capacity building programs in India for the participants from Africa jointly with the collaboration with the government of Japan. Before I conclude, I would like to use this forum to make an announcement. The government of India and Rwanda with Smart Africa Alliance are organizing the first India-Africa ICT and IT Expo on August 5th and 6th, 2019, right here at Kigali Convention Center. The objective is to focus, showcase, and identify affordable, futuristic, and readily deployable solutions to create a pan-African digital economy. Please do participate. Mr. Munish Gupta, who is advisor of India-Rwanda Innovation and Growth Program and a coordinator of Expo, is in attendance here and will be happy to assist and answer any questions in this regard. So with this, I once again express my sincere gratitude to give me an opportunity to speak here and wish continued exchange of ideas and expertise with India and Japan in future as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Excellencies. Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the presence of Honorable Minister of ICT and Innovation, Ms. Paula Ingabire, who will give us just a small remark. But before she does, I'm going to remind you that there is a questionnaire on your chairs where you're sitting. There's a questionnaire, and that questionnaire, we would want to use it to collect information on some of the skills or the trainings, training programs that you feel would be relevant and we should be, the partnership should be investing in. And with that, allow me to join me in thanking my panelists so they can take their seats back, and then we will invite the minister. So thank you very much. I know we didn't give you time to ask questions, but the panelists are here, they're not leaving, so you'll get to interact with them, and so that we give space to the next sessions. Thank you.
Please send applause to moderator and panelists. Thank you very much. And now, we'd like to close this session. Thank you very much for attention. Thank you. Sorry, please, Gabriel, come to the stage. Sorry, I'm sorry.
Good morning, everyone. I wasn't meant to give any remarks. I found myself in the wrong room. And I was quite confused when Alex said we want the Honorable Minister to make remarks. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm here for a different session. But anyway, since all faces are familiar, all are friends, let me use this opportunity to just appreciate the cooperation that we've had with the Japanese counterparts, mainly the government of Japan, JICA very specifically. And like I said earlier, these have been very strong partners, strong believers in our vision as a country to become an innovation hub. And we've been together for many years, and we're in for the long haul. And thank you very much for being here today at Transform Africa. We know it's one of the countries that has really consistently been at this summit with great representation, both in the exhibition but also on the panel sessions. So thank you for coming in as a large delegation, and thank you for your commitment to our vision and to our partnership as a country. With that said, saying that I was at the wrong place at the right time, I just want to conclude my remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ingabire. Thank you. Again, I'd like to close this session. Thank you very much.